Balancing growth and income with Mangosteen. We want the upside of MicroStrategy, but can we also have the income of STRC? Can we have our cake and eat it too? Let's find out. Now we know that STRC is the new kid on the block in the MicroStrategy preferred equity stack, and that product generates a very impressive 11.5% dividend income and has a very high level of seniority, which means that in the event of any liquidation, you are heavily preferred in getting your capital back, which is very appealing. And then we have other products in the preferred equity stack. STRK is also very interesting with the 8% quarterly fixed dividend and some exposure to MicroStrategy's upside. But obviously there's also the penultimate MicroStrategy product that is high exposure to the upside, but also high exposure to the downside. But how can we shift between MicroStrategy and STRC and get the best of both worlds? So let's look at it from a yield and upside exposure point of view. Now we have STRC here with very, very high yield, 11.5%. and no exposure to the upside of MicroStrategy, right? That's kind of a problem if we want to have a bit of both. Now, STRD and STRF have very, very low volatility and slightly worse dividends. And they go up and down depending on essentially people's confidence in MicroStrategy. And then we have STRK at an 8% dividend, but quite a high level of exposure to the MicroStrategy upside or that growth potential. This is really interesting, but can we find another niche? Is there another niche where we can have as much of this as possible and as much of this as possible? Well, with Mangosteen, we can find ourselves somewhere around here where we can get a lot of the STRC income and some of the MSTR growth at the same time without finding ourselves carrying the bag. So I'm going to show you how. Here we have the traditional Mangosteen MicroStrategy Misty Winter rebalancing tool configured for trading MicroStrategy. Now, this tool is very flexible, and what I've done in its most recent upgrade, version 3.3, is to include a more broad set of instructions. So here we can configure it for MicroStrategy trading. Here we can configure it for Misty Winter rebalancing, which is what people are mostly familiar with this tool for. Here we can add MicroStrategy STRC rebalancing, which is what we're going to talk about today, as well as if you want to use it for options or covered option strategy. So we're going to play around with MicroStrategy STRC rebalancing. So here we can click that. And what we have is we get an update to say, hey, I want it flagged to tell me when to rebalance into MicroStrategy, and then I want a flag for when I should rebalance into STRC. And what we have here is MicroStrategy going up, then we rebalance into STRC. During this period, we would have been on our $100 par value. We would have been collecting 11.5% income. Obviously, right, I don't think STRC quite existed then, but we then would have found our rebalance into MicroStrategy, our rebalance out into STRC, our rebalance into MicroStrategy. STRC collects some dividend income while everything's fine, and then now we would have come in this recent bull run, and we would have gone into MicroStrategy at $130 odd a share, and we would have enjoyed a 40 odd 50 odd percent gain, which would have been nice and far in excess of the 11.5% dividends that we would have been enjoying from STRC. And then at some point, maybe we'll come back down and we'll rebalance into STRC. And that becomes very, very powerful because when we're out of the MSTR market, we are enjoying the STRC 11.5% dividend income, which is lovely. And when we are in the market, we are enjoying the tremendous growth value of the MicroStrategy equity product. This is the way in which you achieve the best of both worlds. And with STRC now available on the market and proven and holding its par value, even in pretty horrendous drawdowns, there's a lot of confidence. And I think this is a fantastic way to rebalance your MicroStrategy portfolio to enjoy genuinely really nice dividend income with STRC while being par or NAV stable, and then be rebalancing into MicroStrategy when the market is right and you want to be, exposing yourself to as much growth as possible. So this is really, really powerful and a really, really fantastic sort of upgrade to my Mangosteen MicroStrategy strategy. And so I think if you're really, really interested, I would take a look at getting this strategy for yourself because it's incredibly powerful. So let's spend some time to put some numbers against the performance of the strategy. Now, when we review the strategy over the past 12 months, so let's assume the 1st of May 2025 to the 30th of April 2026, just closing off a few days ago, we can see that the Mangosteen MicroStrategy STRC return profile is $156 a share, or about 40% return. And if we compare that to just holding MicroStrategy buy and hold, you would have made a negative 60% return, coming down from about $390 odd a share down to, the $160, $170 a share that it closed off at the end of April with. And if we were to compare that, and assuming that STRC existed from the 1st of May 2025, we would have made about $45 investing the equivalent of one share into STRC for an 11.5% dividend return, which is the current dividend return that it's offering. And how that breaks down is we would have made rebalancing gains throughout the year. We had some negative months, but we mostly had great positive months. And we then had months where we received the dividend because we happened to have the STRC held on the dividend registration date, which is generally the 15th of the month, or we did, in which case we received the dividend ourselves. And so we got our $392 trading to $4 and to $4.15, and then we received about $33 odd in dividend income for a total return of $156 or 40%. Way, way, way better than holding MicroStrategy or STRC, and this is during a tremendous bear market, right? So it would have been a fantastic investment strategy. If you're interested, if you flick me an email at hello@mangosteen.global, I will happily share with you this Excel analysis and you can verify it for yourself. So if you're interested, fire through an email. If you're wondering who I am just a humble Mangosteen with a background in finance, economics, accounting, and engineering, and professional experience across corporate strategy, finance, including time as head of investment and treasury for a multi-billion-dollar corporate. And I want to cultivate the next generation of active investors from suits to steel caps through renegade financial education and strategy. If you've liked what you've seen here and you think the tools that I'm using are really, really powerful, which I obviously believe that they are, you can acquire a 2-year license at the moment through Mangosteen Private. Check out my website, mangosteen.global. There's a 5% discount when you pay in Bitcoin, and there's obviously a 14-day no questions asked refund policy. So if you buy it and you decide it's not for you, then feel free to email me and I will refund you, no worries. And disclaimer, this channel does not provide financial advice or any advice of any kind. Everything is for general information and entertainment purposes only. It does not consider your personal objectives, financial situations, or needs. Reference to any financial products are factual only and do not constitute recommendations. You must do your own research. Any investment or trading decisions you make are entirely your own. This is entertainment only. You are listening to a random Mangosteen on the internet.